wiped a tear from the side of my face. Now did I see the world as you did?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this celebration of Vivien's life. On behalf of the family, I know that they're extremely happy to see so many people here to help celebrate this wonderful life. We call this a day of celebration because we want to look back on Vivien's life, and we do want to celebrate all that she's accomplished during her lifetime, and she's accomplished a great deal. To everybody in this room, she has meant something different. She's been a curler, a quilter, a hooker, rug hooker that is. That was a joke between Vivien and I. When I first met her and she said she was a hooker, I really didn't know what to think. She was a church secretary here for 53 years. She was a friend. She was a sister. She was a wife. But most importantly, she was a mother. And so I want to start off today's service with this poem about a mother. And that stands for grandmother as well. A mother will always be more than a memory. She's a living presence who is always with you. She's the whisper of the leaves as you walk down the street. She's the smell of certain foods you remember, flowers you pick and perfume she wore. She's the cool hand on your brow when you're not feeling well. She's your breath on a cold winter's day. She's the sound of the rain that lulls you to sleep, and she's the colors of a rainbow. She is Christmas morning. She lives inside your laughter, and she's crystallized in your every teardrop. She's the place you came from, your first home, and she's the map you follow with every step you take. She's your first love, your first friend, and even your first enemy. Nothing on earth can separate you both. Not time, not space, not even death. We're going to light 5 candles. Now, the first candle we light today is the candle that symbolizes Vivien's life. When you watch candles burn, they all flicker and dance in their own unique way. No 2 candles are exactly the same. They're all different. Just like you and I are all unique. We're all different. And it's that uniqueness in Vivien that we want to celebrate today. And I'm going to invite William to come forward to light this first candle for us. Doesn't matter which candle. Thanks, William. The second candle we light is the family candle. And this is the candle that reminds you and I how important our family really is. I know that Vivien's family was really important to her. You know, our family is truly a priceless treasure, something that we need to hold near and dear to our hearts, just as Vivien did. So as we light this candle, I want you to think of your family and how important they are in your life. And so I invite Stephen to come forward to light this candle for us, please. Thanks, Stephen. The third candle we light is the candle of friendship. And this is the candle that symbolizes all of the friendships that Vivien enjoyed during her lifetime. And it represents all of you who have come here today to help celebrate her life. Friends are important. They're the ones that walk beside us during these difficult times. They're the ones that lend us their shoulders to lean on and their ears to bend. Friends are important. So as we light this friendship candle, I want you to think of your friends and how important they are in your life. I'm going to invite John to come forward to light this candle for us, please. Thanks, John. Now, the fourth candle we light is the memory candle. And this is the candle that symbolizes all of the memories that you have of the times that you spent with Vivien. It's been said that life's significance lies in the satisfactions and experiences that we achieve during our lifetime. But life's permanence lies in the memories of those who knew us. By sharing your memories with each other, with the family, you help to keep Vivien's spirit alive. Remember, all of your memories are unique to you, and that's why we ask that you share those memories. And I'm going to invite Laurie to come forward to light this candle for us, please. Thank you. And then we light the last candle, which is the candle of grief. It is necessary to recognize and acknowledge the grief that you experience when a loved one dies. For the family, there are no words to describe how you feel today. And there are no words that anyone can give you to take those feelings away. Everybody will try. We all try to come up with the right words. But in reality, there are no right words. Grief is something that we all have to go through in our own way. But always remember this about grief. Grief is a sign of love. If there was no love, then there would be no grief. So when you look at all the people here today, you know that there was an awful lot of love that's been shared these many years. And so I invite Bruce to come forward to light this final candle for us. Push it forward. Okay. You can always tell who does the barbecuing at home. Thanks, Bruce. So as we watch these 5 candles burn, let them remind us that friends and family have gathered here today to remember, to celebrate the life of, but to grieve the loss of their friend and loved one, Vivien Tolton. Now, Vivien was a member of the church choir. She was a member of the community Christmas choir as well. And she was the librarian of the Christmas choir. And when I first came here, she made sure that I kept all the music in order for the church choir, because I tend to be a bit messy. And so we're going to listen to a choir anthem. This is a song sung by the Celebration Choir called Blessed Assurance. That was always one of my favorite hymns. I used to love opening up the organ and sort of blowing the windows out just a little bit. We come now to a time when we're going to share some memories. I'm going to begin by reading some memories from Vivien's granddaughter, Alice. Gran was one of the funniest people I knew. She could always make me smile. Gran meant a lot to me, and I can't imagine living the rest of my life without her here. To me, Gran felt immortal, like she would never pass, like she would be with me forever. Gran was always there to support me, and she was always ready to help me if I needed it. I loved to play board games with Gran and Janet. My favorite games to play with them were Clue and Scattergories. I always had a good time playing it. The three of us would always laugh so hard playing these games. Gran usually was the one to start the laughter, and I'm really going to miss that. I'm still in denial. I don't believe this is real. I don't believe that she's gone. After I found out, all I could think about was Gran, in school, at home, with friends. I would think about how I won't be able to do my favorite things with her. No more Owen Sound trips, no more witty comebacks, no more getting up mid-dinner to get her steps on her Fitbit, no more stories about the church, no more brown shawl. These are just a few out of so many things I'll miss about Gran. It's funny how a person can go from being so well to suddenly passing a few days later. But the pain is gone, and you are at peace now. I'm going to miss you so much, Gran. You always will have a special place in my heart. Very well written, Alice. Those are beautiful words about your Gran. And I read these memories from her son-in-law, Alan. I met Vivien almost 23 years ago. She was the first member of the family Sarah introduced me to. Meeting your girlfriend's mother for the first time can be very stressful. I need not have worried. She was soft-spoken and polite. Hello, my name is Vivien. Nice to meet you. Before long, I was telling this woman, whom I just met, my life story. She sat quietly and listened, offering a comment here and there. Afterwards, I asked Sarah what had just happened. Sarah assured me this was something that happened to her mother a lot. Perfect strangers told her mother things. That continued for the entire time that I knew Vivien. Vivien made me feel welcome from the very beginning, not in the extravagant, over-the-top way, more like in the, oh good, you're here, can you open this jar of pickles kind of way? One of the things I remember from our visits was the conversations Vivien, Janet, and Sarah would have amongst the three of them. They spent a lot of time laughing with each other and at each other. It was Vivien who always started it. She would have Sarah and Janet in hysterics. Sarah always ended up hyperventilating, and Janet would be gasping something about a heart exploding. Vivien would be laying on her side, laughing hysterically. One of the very best was when Vivien referred to the concert cellist Yo-Yo Ma as Mama Joy. Once we figured out that what she was talking about, it was approximately 10 minutes before anyone could speak coherent words. Barry said something about going to bed as we all continued to roll all over the floor with laughter. To this day, I still crack up at the memory. Alice joined these dialogues and was able to hold her own, giving as good as she got. The laughter continued, with Vivien still acting as instigator, and I'll miss that. During a time when there was no such thing as Keurig, coffee was made at home using a coffee pot. I enjoy a good cup of Joe in the morning, so when at the Tolton house, I would make a pot. But it seemed wasteful to make a pot for just one person. When asked if anyone would like a cup, Vivien spoke up. So I made it for her and myself, and we would have coffee together every afternoon. Then, as Keurigs came around and other matters presented themselves, our afternoon coffee time fell by the wayside, and I miss that. Over the years, Sarah and Janet told me countless stories of their mom driving them here, picking them up there, going to this curling game they were playing in, showing up to that school performance, taking Sarah to doctor appointments and surgeries, taking Janet to Toronto to help look for an apartment, running errands for them when they were occupied and not able to do it themselves. I saw a common theme in all these stories. Vivien was always there for her daughters. She continued to be there for her granddaughter, Alice, who she was fiercely proud of. And I know that for a fact because your Gran always talked about you to us. When in Grey County, Gran would drive Alice here, there, everywhere. She was always available to do what was needed when it came to her granddaughter. Most recently, she took Alice to swimming lessons in Hanover, stopping for donuts at Tim Hortons before coming home, donuts being something both enjoyed very much. Gran would drive hours to see Alice in holiday concerts, then drive back late at night to Markdale, despite my insistence she stay the night and head back in the morning. You may not know this, but Vivien was a tad stubborn. I think most of us would attest to that. It did not matter what the situation was. Gran was always ready to do what was needed for Alice. After Sarah died, Vivien stepped up her game for Alice. She found that extra bit of capacity, and for that I will be eternally grateful. Vivien always looked forward to Sister Day. This was a day created by the Thaler sisters. On Sister Day, Merle, Elaine, Marilyn, and Vivien would get together. No husbands, no kids, no grandchildren. Just the four of them spending time together, having a meal, talking, doing activities, and enjoying each other's company for a day. She loved this day, and she loved her sisters. Vivien had a great affection for her extended family, which manifested in her keen interest in every single one of them. She made it a point to learn about everybody. She was a comprehensive repository of oral family history. She was very proud of all her Tolton and Thaler nieces and nephews and the families they built up and the families their children have started and continue to build. You were all important to her. Her interest was genuine. Her wit was sharp and could be devastating. If you wanted to engage her in a battle of wits, you were going up against a heavily armed woman. Her sense of humor was dry, deadpan, and a bit curmudgeonly. I will miss those mornings out in the living room, talking with Janet and Alice, when a disembodied voice would come floating out from the bedroom area, adding its 2 cents on what was being discussed, usually with a finality that did not encourage challenge. It was funny. She was my kind of funny. I will miss that too. Vivien did not suffer whiners and complainers easily. In fact, I can hear her saying right now, "Why all this bloody fuss?" That would be Vivien. I have been on the receiving end of "suck it up" more than a few times, as many of us have. Vivien was always willing to listen. She was always willing to let you cathartically vent your frustrations. But she let you know when you were being a big baby. I'll miss that too, I think. There are so many things that could be said about Vivien. We cannot detail all of them here today, but we can quickly mention some in no particular order. Teaching Janet, Sarah, and Alice about crafting. Teaching Alice to knit. Organizing the Thaler Christmas draw for decades. Looking after her nieces and nephews when they were children. The stories she told me. And don't worry, the names were withheld to protect the guilty. Teaching Janet and Sarah about family and community and how participation in both matters. Her work at the church, her community groups like Tuesday Group and Knitwits, amongst others. Helping Barry on the farm, then throwing her daughters to the hay bales when they were old enough. She understood the collaborative aspects of marriage. All of this and much more done for her family and for her community. Sometimes it was fun and sometimes not. But it was always worth it to her. I heard it said that there are only 3 primary things you can realistically do for the people you care deeply for. 1, set an example. 2, be there for them. And 3, teach them values and skills that can be helpful all through life. In curling, we would call that a raised triple takeout. Shot called and made. Well done, Vivien. Alice and I have been wondering what March break is going to look like, and Easter, and summer, and what is Christmas going to look like. These are the times of the year of which Vivien was an important part. We do not know right now, but we will figure it out. Vivien would expect us to do so. Vivien was a good mom, a good sister, a good wife, the best gran, a beloved member of the family, and a respected member of her community. I have one final thing I would like to say to Vivien. Whenever you are spoken of, whenever your stories are told, I will never, ever let anyone, myself included, call you Viv. Wonderful memories. Thank you so much, Alan. And at this time, I'd like to call James forward to share some memories of his aunt.
Hello. My name's James Haney. I'm Elaine's son, so I got to call her Aunt Vivien. I have a sort of an introduction here, but David's gone over some of the things I was going to talk about roles and the way Vivien was in a leadership role in a lot of areas with her hooking. I called her a hooking maven. I thought that was better than just calling her a hooker. I wasn't sure how that would go. And choir organizer and club member. This idea came to me, this idea of roles, because we were talking to my sister Mary Ann and I were talking to Janet last week. And I, of course, was talking about Aunt Vivien and Janet was talking about Mom. And I thought, oh, yeah, the same person, clearly different roles. And she served some very important roles in Elaine Haney's children's lives. So I have some reminiscing about events that we always thought were very amusing because Aunt Vivien told us about them, and she was funny when she told the stories. So I'll fill you in on some of these stories, and hopefully you can envision that Aunt Vivien kind of delivery. When Aunt Vivien changed from nursing to secretarial school, she came to Kitchener-Waterloo and lived with us. So she was around when I was a little kid. Peter, my brother, was also there, and my older sister, Mary Ann. I can remember her there very vaguely. I can remember the typewriter and the noise of the typewriter and a lot of practice with typing. And I was fascinated with all the movement of the machinery, and it was the carriage going back and forth, and she was magical. She could type my name, it would appear on a piece of paper. I thought that was brilliant. And I can remember her handing me an index card or something with my name and address typed on it. Now, aside from being our housemaid and living there with us, she fell into the role of babysitter, caregiver on quite a few occasions. And I'm sure she must have enjoyed us. She had stories. There was one story she had that I really liked because it was about me. And I didn't really remember this incident, but she told it very well. She was driving us somewhere. And we, of course, were free in the back seat without seat belts or anything like that. And she was driving along, and she became aware that someone, myself, had cranked down the rear window. And of course, they go right down into the door. There's none of that safety nonsense about having the glass part way up. And she thought she'd better see what was going on, and she did a quick shoulder check. And I think the phrase she used was that she almost had kittens, because she thought I was climbing out the window. So I had put my right leg out the window, and I had my brush cut out in the breeze. And I was holding on to the front doorpost, and I was straddling the door. And of course, she was very calmly pulled over, apparently, and there was a discussion And she said, well, what were you doing? Why were you getting out of the car? I said, well, I wasn't getting out. I was riding a horse. And that was one of the things, that she would roll her eyes and kind of shake her head and go, oh, there's boys, I guess, that's it. Now, she also had a story, a good one, about my brother Peter that we remembered. There was lots about Peter, but it sort of illustrates Aunt Vivien's pragmatic approach to solving a problem or dealing with issues. Peter had a temper tantrum in our house in Waterloo. In the front hallway, it was a slate stone floor, and that's where he was having a tantrum. And apparently he's on the floor on his stomach, and he's kicking and screaming and banging his head on the stone. And Aunt Vivien thought that maybe wasn't the best thing, so she took him by the ankles and dragged him into the living room so he could bang his head on the carpet as long as he wanted. I'm sure she was pleased that she had two lovely little girls instead of boys. Now, there was another incident that my sister reminded me of. She had this great story. She went above and beyond the call of duty on this. Elaine had us packed up and organized to go to the cottage. And of course, the cat was supposed to come, but we couldn't find the cat. The cat was gone. And that didn't delay us long. Elaine said, well, we're going in the car. The cat's lost. Well, the cat showed up after we were gone. And somehow or other, and I don't know how this worked, Aunt Vivien became responsible for retrieving the cat from the neighbors, I suppose, and then transporting it to us. Now, this involved, apparently, putting a very angry cat in a pillow slip and going by taxi from some point to another, and then getting a friend to drive her to Hanover to Grandma and Grandpa's house, to her parents' house, so that Elaine could come from the Kincardine to get the cat. It seemed very convoluted to me, but she told the story very well. And I can imagine if it was Frisky, we'd think it was Frisky. Frisky did not travel in the car very well, so it would have been quite a wild ride with a cat tied up in a pillow slip. I have down here, I don't know that Elaine or Vivien even liked cats very much. Now, Aunt Vivien also, believe it or not, to me, served in the role, it's hard to believe, really, think about it, of golf pro. Now, the Thaler Cottage is at Bruce Beach, south of Kincardine, and we'd go there to visit Grandma and Grandpa, and they had a wonderful little golf course there, the Bruce Beach Golf Course, and Aunt Vivien took us, when I'm talking about us, that'll be me and Peter and maybe some other cousins, I'm not really sure who was there. She took us over to the Bruce Beach Golf Course. I assume she wanted to, but Grandpa might have said, get these kids out of here. So I don't know for sure. And, she showed us around the course and taught us how to deal with the oiled sand greens that you had to drag a piece of carpet around to smooth out after you were finished. And the one thing that I do remember is being on a somewhat elevated green and asking which way to hit the ball, and Aunt Vivien just pointing with the club, well, hit it down the hill. And then Peter has this wonderful memory that amuses him so much of Aunt Vivien there at the golf course, and we're looking around in the juniper bushes for a lost golf ball, and Aunt Vivien stepped in a wasp nest. And Peter thinks this is hilarious to this day. he remembers that. And I don't know that we golfed much there after that. Now, it's also been mentioned that Aunt Vivien, for many, many years, dealt with the Thaler family Christmas gift exchange for the Thaler family party. Two separate organizational units there. So the party rotates amongst the four families, but Aunt Vivien always was in charge of the Christmas name draw, which was not a draw. She had a system, and then you were issued a name, and that was who you were presenting with a gift. When you got a little bit older, you had the pleasure of creating a gift for the person that you had that name. And it was quite an organizational feat. Now, this brings to mind when I asked my wife, Erica, what should I say about Aunt Vivien? What should I put in there? And Erica, very enthusiastically, that's the way she is, she said, oh, say that Aunt Vivien was an inspiration. And I said, in my Thaler way, what are you talking about? And Erica said that Aunt Vivien and Aunt Marilyn had inspired her with the beautiful things that they've produced. And you've seen examples here, but I'm sure most of you have seen what they do. That she was going to learn, Erica then was inspired to learn to hook. And so she has done that. And that's a role that I hadn't really seen Aunt Vivien in, as inspirational leader. So there's another one. Homemade gifts, inspirational leader, got you. All right. Now, personally, I've seen Aunt Vivien in a role of educator. She was always willing to tell you something that she thought you should know. A few years ago, Aunt Vivien and her family came over to the cottage in Kincardine. They were using my parents' cottage, and I was there, and I went down for a paddle in the evening on a stand-up paddle board, and Aunt Vivien and Alice were on the beach, and I went for a paddle, and I sort of gave them a wave. I came back, and I was speaking to Aunt Vivien, and she said, well, that was pretty good for an old guy. I sort of bristled at that. I said, what are you talking about? That's a thing I say. What are you talking about? She said, well, you know, there's not everybody can get up and paddle around on the board. And I said, well, it's not about that. I mean, what do you mean the old guy thing? And she said, she sort of looked at me and that head shake, and then she says, you know, James, face it, you're over 60. You're an old guy. So I hadn't really thought about it until then, but yeah, I'm an old guy. And that Aunt Vivien I can thank as an educator in that case. So, I mean, all those different roles that she played in our lives, I know she fulfilled them all quite admirably, especially the cat retrieval crew. And my favorite is this idea that Erica says she's an inspirational leader. That's terrific. When I look at photographs of Aunt Vivien with her three sisters, I'm struck by how alike they appear to be. They share some traits, both physical and of temperament. Facial expressions, tone of voice, lovely white hair. That's where it comes from. Things that have become known as Thaler family traits. Clearly, though, there are differences. They aren't clones. Aunt Vivien was different with her own unique outlook and opinions. She was a character in all the best meaning of that word. I mean, how many people take their pet turtle for a walk? She had a pet turtle, correct? What was the name of the turtle? Prince somebody? Sir somebody. That had a hole in the shell and she could put a string on it, and she took her turtle for a walk, apparently. That's, my mom told me that one. She was definitely one of a kind. I will miss her.
Thanks, James. I'm going to invite Elaine Mitchell to come up, and she's going to play a lovely number for us. And I'm going to accompany her on the piano. Thanks, Elaine. I want to share with you a little story. It's a silly little story about a dewdrop. One morning, this little dewdrop woke up on a leaf. It was sunny outside, it was a beautiful day. And this little dewdrop thought, my, what a wonderful day this is. Life is so wonderful. So that little dewdrop just laid there and was soaking up the sun, thinking this is the way life should be. But all of a sudden, the wind began to blow and the leaf began to shake. And the little dewdrop thought, why is everything changing all of a sudden? Because it began to slide around the leaf. Well, as the wind got stronger and the leaf shook even more, the little dewdrop started to slide off towards the edge. And fear gripped the little dewdrop. The little dewdrop knew that it did not want to drop off of that leaf. But of course, as the wind blew and the leaf shook, the little dewdrop got closer and closer to the edge until finally it was holding on for dear life. Well, the little dewdrop thought, if I let go of this leaf, I'm going to be smashed into 1,000 pieces below. Well, of course, eventually the little dewdrop had to let go. And down, down it fell, absolutely terror-stricken as to what was going to happen. But as it was falling down, going down very, very far, it saw a reflection of itself coming up to greet it. And it couldn't understand what was happening. It was still terrified of what was going to happen. But the further down it went, the closer its reflection became. And so the dewdrop just kept going down and down and down until finally the dewdrop dropped into the pond that was down below. Now the dewdrop was no more, but it had not been smashed into 1,000 pieces. The little dewdrop had simply become one with the all. Well, you and I are the dewdrops, and this physical life that we're experiencing today is our leaf. And eventually all of us must face that reality of we're going to slide off towards the edge of that leaf, and we're going to have to let go. And so the question for you then is, well, are we going to be smashed into 1,000 pieces when we drop? Is there nothing more? Or in fact, are we going to become like that dewdrop and enter into something that we didn't know existed? From a faith perspective, we all have faith that there's life beyond this life. It's easy for me to say that's true because not only does my faith tell me that, but so does science. So if you don't have a strong faith and you're saying, I'm not sure that there's life beyond this life, think of what a physicist would say. A physicist would tell you that all living things have energy. Energy cannot be destroyed. So when the body dies, the energy within us simply is released back into the one, back into the all. Spirit, energy, same thing. Person of faith will call it their spirit. Person of science will call it their energy. The fact is, there is a part of Vivien that continues to exist this very day. It's not something you can see. It's not something you can physically touch. But you can certainly feel her presence. People say, well, can you really feel it? If you were with Vivien and she was really angry, tell me that you wouldn't feel that anger. She didn't have to say anything, you could feel it. But if she was really in a fantastic mood, or if you were in a fantastic mood, you would feel it. You can feel the emotions. Therefore, you are feeling the energy, you are feeling the spirit. So in fact, a part of Vivien does continue to exist. And the strongest energy, or the strongest part of our spirit that we can share with anyone, is love. And let me read this to you about love. But with one exception, all things pass from this world, and time erases not just memories, but entire civilizations, reducing every one and every monument to dust. The only thing that survives is love, for it is an energy as enduring as light, which travels outward from its source toward the ever-expanding boundaries of the universe, the very energy of which all things were conceived, and with which all things will be sustained in a world beyond this world of time and dust and forgetting. All the love that she shared with everybody, when you close your eyes and you open your hearts and minds and you feel that love, know that the love is real. Her spirit continues to exist. You know, this promise of everlasting life, nobody said that it was physical life. You and I are much more than just physical beings. I always tell people do this. When you wake up tomorrow morning, look in the mirror as soon as you get out of bed. When you get over the shock of what you might see, ask yourself the question, who am I? Am I who I see in the mirror? Is that all there is? Or is it just possible the spirit or energy within me is the real me? Bottom line, am I just a physical being in search of a spiritual existence? Or is it just possible that I'm a spiritual being offered a physical existence? Tough question, but it's one you have to answer for yourself. All I know for sure is that there is a part of Vivien alive today and will always be alive. I'd like to end this part with the reading of the 23rd Psalm, and for anyone who knows it, please feel free to join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. And please join me in prayer. Dear God, there's an empty chair at our table, an ache in our hearts and tears upon our faces. We try to shield one another from our grief, but we cannot hide it from you. We pray for Vivien, whose presence we miss. Open our eyes and our hearts to the healing, the warmth, and the peace of your presence. Assure us that those we miss have a home in your heart as well as in ours, and a place at your table forever. Open our hearts to joyful memories of the love we shared with those who have gone before us. Help us tell the stories that bring us close to one another and to the ones we miss so much. Teach us to lean on you and on each other for the strength we need to walk through difficult times. Give us quiet moments with you, with our thoughts, with our memories, and with our prayers. And in the stillness of the quiet, give us your consolation and your peace. Be with us and hold us in your arms as you hold the ones we miss. This is the day you have made, O Lord. Help us rejoice and be glad in the peace you have promised. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Just before I do the committal, there are a few announcements. Everyone is welcome to join the family in Fellowship Hall following the service for a time of fellowship and lunch. For those who are remaining for the luncheon, we would ask that you exit through this door here. For those who are not going to be staying for lunch, Janet is going to be out in the narthex because she really does want to be able to say hello to everybody. So if you're not going to be staying for lunch, we would ask that you exit through the door on my right. At this time, I would ask that you stand for the committal, please. Let me begin with these words. I took up a handful of grain and let it start flowing through my fingers. And I said to myself, this is what it's all about. There is no longer any room for pretense. At harvest time, the essence is revealed. The straw and the chaff have done their job. The grain alone matters. Sacks of pure gold. And so it is when a person dies, the essence of that person is revealed. At the time of death, a person's character stands out happy, for the person is fortunate well over the years. Then it will not matter their great achievements, nor how much money or possessions a person has amassed. These, like the straw and the chaff, we have behind. What will matter is what they have made of themselves. Death will take away from us what we have, but cannot rob us of who we are. Friends, we've been celebrating this life that is now ended. And the time has now come for us to say goodbye to our friend and loved one, Vivien Tolton. All of her hopes and ideals we now commit into your minds and your wills. All that she loved, we commit into your hearts. And her spirit, we commit back to God. And Vivien, may you rest in peace. We are reminded that there's also the immortal part that shall survive the grave and will never die. If I could have the four of you come forward. And now we lay these flowers fair in token of our memories and hopes beyond compare. One for the faith she cherished, unfaltering and true. And another for her special love, known well by all of you. And these, the most special ones of all, we place upon her heart in token of her life of hope and ours the deathless part. And now we leave the future in the hands of God the Creator, who is glorious in holiness, boundless in mercy, infinite in understanding, and who will do all things well. Please join me in prayer. Compassionate and loving God, yours is the beauty of childhood, and yours is the fullness of years. Comfort us in our sorrow, strengthen us with hope, and breathe peace into our troubled hearts. Assure us that the love we had for Vivien was not in vain. Indeed, make it a part of the store of goodness you're even now pouring out upon her in your eternal kingdom. Indeed, help us to bless you for the gift you gave us in her, for the joy she gave all who knew her, for the memories that will abide with us, and for the assurance that she lives forever in the joy and peace of your presence. Guide us through this time of sadness with the light of your love and the strength of your compassion. We ask this in the name of Christ Jesus. Amen. Friends, We've been remembering this life that is now ended. And the time has now come for each of you to return to living your own lives enriched by those memories. And before I give the final blessing, I would like to offer this blessing for the lunch. Let's pray. Bless us, O Lord, for these thy gifts which we are about to receive. We ask your blessing upon the farmers who grow it and on those who prepare it, the bonds that empower us, the new friends who enlighten us, and for the gift we have been given to be able to share these gifts with one another. And let us always be aware of those without these opportunities, and let us always be grateful for what we have. Amen. And now may the light of love shine forth on you, on those for whom you care, and on those who care for you. May you be ever blessed with peace and understanding as you travel through your life, and may you come to the end of your journey in gentleness and in joy. Amen. Now we are going to be departing to a song that you're going to think, why are we playing this song? But we are going to leave on a high note. Vivien loved big band music. So we are going to be exiting the church with the Glenn Miller Orchestra playing In the Mood. Thank you again from the family for being here. Thank you.